Today's movie is called Obsession, and it's gone viral, like all my venereal diseases. It begins at a diner. Bear practices his confession to a random waitress. The girl thinks it's great, but Ian, his best friend, tells him that it is cringy and tells him to insult Nikki as a form of flirtation. Bear wants to confess that he's been longing for Nikki since high school, but Ian suggests waiting for the right time. When he gets home, he sees his cat, Sandy, dead on the floor. Sandy had overdosed on some pills that were left out, and so he mourns his cat with a great amount of guilt. He is stalking Nikki's Instagram when she calls him to go out for trivia night, but he hesitates because he is grieving. But Nikki is quitting their retail job in 2 weeks, so he decides to go. Before ending the call, he hears that her crystal necklace fell into the drain, so he rushes to buy her a crystal necklace to replace it. But the One Wish Willow catches his eye, and he buys that instead. The direction says to break it in half and ask for one wish. At the bar, the group hangs out for trivia night. Nikki offers to get them drinks before the competition, so Bear joins her, hoping for an opportunity to confess. As he's about to, Ian interrupts him. Then Sarah interrupts. As they're about to cheers, Bear says it's for Sandy, but no one hears except Sarah, and she hugs Bear to console him. It seems like Sarah wants his D. When Nikki is tired, Bear drives her home and she feels bad for Bear's cat. She tells him that she needs to change her life and become a serious writer, but says she needs love to craft the love story she wants to write. Outside her house, Nikki tells him that Sarah likes him, although Bear only likes Sarah as a friend, and Nikki laughs. She leaves the car, and he continues to communicate, hoping to express his feelings. When she turns her back, he calls her Freaky Nikki, which makes her upset and offended. She goes back to ask him if he likes her. Bear freezes and reiterates that they're just friends. Out of frustration, he opens the One Wish Willow and wishes Nikki loved him more than anything in the world. Then, he snaps it. About to go home, he looks at the window and sees Nikki standing there. Oh, hell no. She approaches and asks him to go inside because she lost her cat. Both of them are confused. Nikki confusingly insists that he go inside. She snaps out of it and realizes she's acting strange. She changes her mind and decides to go to his place instead. She shares that her dad has cancer and she feels lonely. She cries and asks to go to Bear's place instead. At his house, she asks him to sleep beside her, where she rests on his shoulder. Nikki kisses him, but snaps out of it and shouts in disgust. Both of them are shocked, and she cries out in confusion. Bear wakes up at night and checks Reddit about the One Wish Willow. Some say it works, and some say it doesn't. When he turns to sleep, Nikki is awake and tells him to lay with her. He wakes up and sees breakfast prepared for him. When he goes to the kitchen, he sees his dead cat displayed with a lit candle, which makes Bear very uncomfortable. But Nikki swears it's a sweet thing. They clock in for work where Ian wonders what happened. He thinks Bear broke Nikki's back since they walked in together. Bear tells him that Nikki is acting weird and shares that her dad has cancer. Ian is confused because he knows that Nikki hates her dad, so he tells Bear that he will check on Nikki. Ian thinks Nikki was probably on Molly. Meanwhile, Nikki is just looking at them like a psychopath. Later, Ian calls Bear and Ian says Nikki seemed fine. Then Nikki is at Bear's door and apologizes for acting weird last night because she was on Molly. Then she confesses her feelings to Bear. He confesses his feelings as well. Then the two get it on and even share COVID at work. Days pass and their love blossoms. Even Sarah looks annoyed. While on the date, Bear tells Nikki that he wants to be one of those influencers who eats food in their cars so he can get free food. He answers Ian's call, who's been calling him constantly. Ian tells him that Nikki's father does not have cancer. Ian also shares that Nikki and Sarah had a conversation where Nikki only sees Bear as a little brother. Ian says, it's almost like Nikki just became a different person overnight. When he gets back to the table, Nikki gives him a tiger's eye rock. She confesses she loves him so much and can't live without him. Then he asks Nikki if her dad has cancer.
Oh no, don't say that! I thought we were having a nice day!
He calms her down and he gets manipulated into agreeing that her lie doesn't matter. This is simping behavior. That night they do the deed, but even Nikki looks like she's hating it. Later, Bear wakes up at 3:45 a.m. and sees Nikki standing in the corner of the room watching him sleep. He asks him to get back to bed, but she doesn't want to, and cries because she feels like he does not love him as much. Since he cannot persuade her, Bear goes back to sleep, when suddenly, she screams and carries a flower vase around. Then she cuddles Bear and tells him to stay in bed.
Stay!
I know you f***ing lying. The next day, he notices that his hair has been cut and asks Nikki about it. She admits to helping him with his looks maxing while he was asleep. When he goes to leave for work, he realizes the door has been duct taped to keep him home. He manages to open it and leaves while Nikki just stands there with her creep Oz smile while waiting for him, and she gives herself a golden shower. At work, he opens his lunch that Nikki packed him and sees their pictures. He delightfully bites the sandwich and confronts Sarah about her conversation with Nikki calling him a little brother. She is about to tell a secret about Nikki and Ian, but she gets a letter that informs her that she didn't get into one of the colleges she applied for. She leans on him to feel better and tells him that his lunch smells bad. She grabs the note on the lunch, asking,
My little food critic.
Well, what's the verdict on Cat?
Bear realizes that he is munching on Sandy and pukes. I know you f***ing lying! After work, Ian rides home with Bear and asks why Nikki suddenly became close to him. Unable to explain, he deflects and asks why they are not invited to Ian's party tonight. He does not want to invite them because he feels like Bear is taking advantage of Nikki's predicament. Hesitantly, Ian invites him anyway, but tells Bear that it will be a boys' night. As Bear is about to enter his house, he hears the jingle of the One Wish Willow box and sees the customer service number on the back. He calls it and asks to alter the wish instead of fixing the issue. Unfortunately, you can only wish once and cannot alter or cancel it on your own. It can only be undone once Bear is dead. The customer service rep puts Nikki on the line to speak with him. When he enters the house, Nikki has been waiting there for hours, covered in her own filth. She takes a bath to clean up. When he tells her that he's going out with Ian for a boys' night, she suddenly turns off the shower and screams when she realizes he's going alone. Continuously not having a spine, he folds and brings her to the party. Ian and Bear join the group playing a game. Joe gets a dare to switch places, so he switches places with Bear. So Bear ends up beside Sarah. When it is Nikki's turn, she gets a dare and reads a weird incestuous version of Hansel and Gretel. All of the people at the party get weirded out. When it's Bear's turn, he gets a dare to kiss the person on his left, which is Sarah. Nikki stands and frowns so weirdly. She moves to pull Sarah's chair to be on Bear's left and pouts, waiting for a kiss. Everybody cringes with their PDA. She informs them that they will never feel the same love that she has with Bear. The homies cringe so much, so they decide to get a drink instead. Suddenly, Nikki snaps out and screams. Feeling trapped, she grabs a bottle and smashes it on her head to end her suffering. She snaps back to her obsessed self and apologizes. Seeing her bloodied, the friend shouts for Bear to help her, but the spineless just sits there realizing his wish is tainted. In Bear's house, Bear confronts Nikki about her weird actions and verifies if she is happy. She smiles and calls herself Freaky Nikki. He cannot stand it because he likes her when she was normal Nikki. Bear asks her for space and tells her to be normal and go home for now. She cries, begging him that she can be Nikki. He tells her to stop being freaky, so she shouts. Bear realizes that it is not real. Everything is not real. He tells her that he loves her. Then, I would have noped the F out of there real quick. She goes to the dark, which scares Bear. She continues to move erratically, which adds to his fear. He tells her that space might be better, so he should go to Ian tonight. Frustrated, Nikki rummages in the kitchen angrily and carries a knife. She describes that she will unalive herself, so he stays with her. At 2:42 a.m., Sarah messages Bear. She has some important things to say, so she needs to see him. As Bear is about to leave, a whisper from the real Nikki asks him to end her suffering. Bear asks if it's really that bad being with him. Real Nikki tells him the truth that they were never truly together. Nikki keeps begging, but he leaves her. Bear is the true villain of this movie. Inside Sarah's car, Sarah thinks Nikki is too dependent on Bear. She shows him an unopened letter to a university. Then she informs him that Nikki and Ian had been hooking up on and off for the last 2 years. She expresses that Ian feels that Nikki is using Bear to make Ian jealous. Then Sarah says Bear needs someone more chill like her. Bear flirts with the idea, and she reminds him he was supposed to kiss her. Their romantic hangout is cut abruptly when Nikki charges the car. She smashes Sarah's face into a brick multiple times. Like usual, Bear does nothing. After she consoles him, the two get Sarah's body to the trunk to clean it up. Bear sits in the car, shocked by the events that transpired. There, he opens the letter from Sarah, where he sees that she has been accepted into Luther Art School, her dream university. He screams at the top of his lungs because of his sheer anger and sadness. In the morning, he rushes to the store to get a One-Wish willow. It is not on the previous cabinet, so he asks the owner. The owner points to the One-Wish willow and tells him that he can ask someone to counter his wish. So, he gets the 2 remaining willows. In the car, he wishes that Nikki only loved him as a friend, but the willow cannot be broken. He goes to Ian's place and asks for help. He admits that he wished Nikki loved him on the One-Wish willow, and asks Ian to make a wish that will cancel his wish. Unconvinced by magic, Ian wishes for $1 billion, and lots of money falls inside the house. Bear goes home to ask Nikki to use the One-Wish willow to cancel the wish. He sees Sarah's body mutilated, and Nikki wearing her dress and copies of Sarah's tattoos on Nikki's body. Nikki is screaming hysterically, forcing Bear to love her back, when suddenly Ian opens the door to tell Bear that he got rich. Unfortunately, Nikki shoots Ian. She continues to scream, forcing him to love her, so he screams his love. Bear, scared by Nikki, goes to the bathroom, but drops the last One-Wish willow on the floor. Bear holds the gun and considers finishing it all, but he cannot, so he decides to overdose on the pills, the same pills that ended his cat. But he a pussy, so he tries to puke up the pills. The jingle of the One-Wish willow plays, and in a snap of a wood, Bear changes demeanor. It cancels his attempt to puke. After Nikki makes her wish, Bear leaves the bathroom and looks at her with pure happiness and love. The 2 obsessed people kiss. Bear's knees weaken as the pills start to take effect. On the couch, Nikki holds Bear while he is foaming at the mouth. Her despair makes her reach for the weapon, planning to join Bear. But the magic of the wish ends when Bear flatlines, so Nikki snaps back to her real self. She wakes up with Bear's lifeless body on her lap and surrounded by the bodies of her best friend Ian and Sarah. Covered in blood, she weeps and wails from the devastating and tragic events that happened. This hoe definitely going to jail, even though I feel totally bad for her being forced to do all of this against her will. This has been my favorite movie so far. It reminds us that love cannot be fabricated. What did y'all think about this one?
Did y'all enjoy that? Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I try to respond to as many as I can. If you love male type movies, make sure to subscribe. For more videos, you can click here or here. And congrats on finding my secret channel.